Hi, and welcome to Anatomy of a TikTok Trend, hosted by the Go Agency podcast. This mini-series aims to explore the social and creator-led trends that reflected and shaped consumer mood shifts, created conversation, and ultimately broke through the walls of social media to become part of wider culture. In each episode, I'll invite a guest to share their unique thoughts and perspectives on two big TikTok trends from the past 12 months. We'll also discuss some of the more general trends, innovations, and disruptions impacting their industries, as well as a bit about their own career journey. So for today's episode, I'm pleased to welcome our very own senior video producer and longtime vlogger, Matthew Wyatt. And we'll be discussing three different trends today: Roman Empire, Brit and Draft Talk. So Matt has been with the Go Agency for a very long time, not including the quick break that you took, but we don't speak about that.
Spring break.
And what you are really known for, and anyone who's kind of aware of the Go Agency, who's followed us for a while, is that you are the face of the company vlog, which is insane. And it was a very kind of game-changing vlog, wasn't it? Like it drove, it was getting thousands and thousands of views at one point every single day. And it was daily you were vlogging?
Daily for 400 straight episodes.
400 episodes.
400 straight episodes, which, I don't know how we pulled it off.
Yeah.
Because I say best job ever.
And
best
when
job
did
that
it
exists.
start?
It started, I'm not good with dates, but I think like 2019, something like that.
I think it was earlier,
Maybe
because
earlier.
Goat was founded in 2015. So I feel like maybe...
I came in, though, as Goat was sort of progressing from scrappy startup to something a little bit more mature.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry was just becoming sort of, influencer was becoming a known entity.
Yeah.
And that's when they decided to do the vlog. And God, I'm being so formal.
You
Sorry.
already had experience, though, in content creation before.
Yeah, I'd studied film. My mum was a photographer, so I kind of just followed the family business. So I studied film, and then I went to work for a company. I shouldn't name it, should I? It's Secret. Secret's in the name, Secret London, where I basically got sent across London to like all these weird venues to take little promo videos. So I came in as I'd say, pretty established videographer skill set wise. I knew what I was doing.
But how did they entice you to do a vlog? Because that was something that was quite... I know there were vlogs at the time, but it was very unheard of for a business to do a vlog. So how did they get you in?
I didn't know what a vlog was. So when I was describing, hey, I've got this new job to my friends, I'm doing this vlog.
They must have thought you were mad.
Yeah, I think they still do. But I was basically fired from another role. I was being a producer, and you know me, I'm not very organized. So I obviously got let go. So I was sort of just like fishing around and had a weird connection to Harry Hugo, one of our co-founders, ended up in their offices on a Friday and started the following Monday.
Wow.
And all these years later, I reference my show reel to Harry and I say, oh, do you remember that job I did that was on my show reel? They'd never watched it.
They
it was
just
a vibes
you.
hire.
It was a vibes hire.
Vibes hire.
And you still are the vibe hire, I would say. You are very much the personality hire of the office. I don't know if that's a compliment or it's meant as a compliment, but there we go. Okay, so the vlog started. You were basically just capturing content of Goat's daily life, and it was this growing influencer agency. So did you have a plan? Did you just go for it? How did you do it?
There was no plan at the beginning. So it took us about 6 months to figure out what a vlog was, how to structure it. It started as a sort of fly on the wall thing where we were just going into the corners of meetings and saying, we're not here, ignore us. And it was all very strange. But then we realized, I think one day I started interacting with someone from behind the camera, and there was a light bulb moment where everyone sort of thought, oh, okay. The way that this works... You could be
in front of the camera as well. Yeah.
Not so much in front, but almost as a video journalist behind the camera, coming into the company as a kind of a roving reporter, someone that is within the company, but almost like a satellite person. So that's when it really sort of evolved into the vlog as we kind of know and love today, where I use my own voice and position as a layman, because what people don't seem to understand is I don't understand anything about marketing. I never have, and I never will. Now, people like Paul Scannell, who
are EMEA lead.
EMEA lead, who joined from Inca, that we acquired when we merged with WPP, or we merged with when we got acquired by WPP,
Mm-hmm.
he will laugh at me and say, I think secretly you're actually in charge of the whole company because you like...
You know a lot.
You know a lot. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't. It goes literally in one ear and out the other.
But I think you dumb yourself down a little bit in that sense, because we have
Again,
a lot of conversations about marketing and social media and influencers, and I think you know a lot more, which we will get into in a bit in this podcast. And then, okay, so the vlog took off. It was getting, at some point, thousands of views every day, right? Which for a business agency vlog is pretty impressive. Were there any major milestones from your side that kind of stick out in your memory, or like a favorite moment that you just thought, oh, wow, this is really something?
I've got the vlog, because it spans so many years, it's almost like looking back through your personal photo archive and you're going, oh, God, like I was this. So we've been to the French Embassy, on top of the O2, super yachts in Cannes, TikTok's inaugural concert in Arizona.
Didn't you try to break into the Gymshark office in one episode?
That was not condoned by the Go agency, but I did drive all the way to Solihull, Birmingham. They didn't let me in.
A wasted trip.
A wasted trip. We've been across the world. We've been to, I filmed in Las Vegas casinos. We've been on golf courses in Singapore. Just listing out some of the places that the vlog has been. Mm-hmm. Little old me with zero marketing knowledge.
Yeah.
So all of those have been kind of like milestones along the way.
Mm. But I think some of the best episodes have been just sometimes when it's in the company, in the office, and like you have such a good kind of way of getting people to open up. And actually that's something I would love to know, and maybe people who are listening would like to know. Do you have any tips for like how you get people to open up? Because I've done content with you where we recently went to New York, we were filming on the High Line, we were trying to get people to answer questions for us. And it's so much harder than it looks. Like when you see these interviews, these vox pops on the street, it looks really easy, but actually getting people, a lot of people are very nervous if you're sticking a camera in their face.
Yeah, I get nervous on camera. I feel the same kind of like hesitation.
So how do you get people to kind of relax and give you something?
I honestly think just being weird, like it's an ice-breaking tool that I've used ever since freshers in university. I remember like blasting through the doors of our kitchen in halls and just like, if you are the weirdest person in the room, maybe the loudest, maybe you say, people are suddenly sort of like, I'm not going to be as weird as this bloke. And they kind of either match your energy or
or they play the straight guy, in the in shows there's always like you need the straight character who's like a mainly Arrested Development. It will be like the
haven't seen it, but
okay, but you need someone who's kind of normal. Jim from The Office, because that way the weird people can be weird around them, so you're allowing them to play the straight guy in a way.
I think I've tried to develop an approach that is friendly, high energy, and a bit weird. And I think for whatever reason, those ingredients kind of make people go, this guy's harmless. Like I will. But a lot of the time, I think you've just got to like grab either physically or just go, hey, look, please stop. Please give me an answer,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of fun. And I think no one wants to be asked a boring question like in such a sort of serious manner.
I've noticed that you will often ask a really weird question, a couple of weird questions to start with, which sounds maybe silly, but then I've realized it really works as a way to get people to be like, right? What is this guy asking me? And then you can ask them the serious question, and then they're a little bit warmed up. And then what is it like to be the face of a company's vlog or social channel? Because we're starting to see this more and more, especially on TikTok. Often brands will employ someone to be like the face of their TikTok.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of a risk with that because number one, if that person doesn't work out or if they leave because, you left GOAT for a while, you came back because you obviously missed us so much. But you're kind of, is it a risk for brands? Firstly, from your side, what is it like to be so inherently tied to a company?
Yeah. And
also, do you think that's a good route to go down for a lot of brands?
Yeah, there's two sides to this. And I was watching the Martha Stewart documentary. It's just dropped on Netflix.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet. I'm going to watch that this week.
Didn't know who she was and it blew my mind. But she was going public with a company that was like the Martha Stewart global whatever. investors were reluctant because it all centered around her and her reputation. And I think it's the same thing as brands.
And then she went to jail.
Then she went to jail. So you'd be in jail. Which I think almost bad reputations nowadays kind of like it's gone full circle where people like a bit of grit and a bit of like a weird character arc. But there is enormous risk with your reputation as a brand or a company being fixed to a singular person. I don't think that's what Goat has with me, because it's very clear that I don't speak on behalf of Goat. I'm just a spokesperson that could be replaced tomorrow. Please don't. But I think we see more and more brands do it. So John Deere is a client that we work with who have got a TikTok ambassador, their chief tractor officer. Fantastic idea. We've got the BBC, it was announced yesterday, are looking for a new football expert, and they're doing a whole reality TV show to find this person.
Oh, wow.
So I think if you've got companies like the BBC that are realizing the potential and the power in authentic, I hate that word. It's like whenever you say on podcasts.
I know we've got an authentic ban in the marketing team that we're not allowed to use the word authentic because I hate it as well.
But the power of having someone as the face of your brand is the fact that they can be sort of a non-corporate voice, right? Through me, I think Goat has been able to say, this guy doesn't speak. I don't speak for Aaron Shepard, Harry Hugo, or Nick Cook, but I'm allowed to ask ridiculous questions that they never would be able to.
That's
jump on
true.
desks and shout things.
Yeah.
Ah!
Well, it wouldn't work if I was running the vlog as head of marketing, because they'd be like,
You're respectable.
Well, I hope so. But also, like, they would be worried if I was asking these kind of stupid questions about marketing. Not stupid, but as in like more basic questions for the audience, because they'd be like, well, why is the head of marketing asking that? She should know.
Yeah.
So having someone that's a little bit removed, I think, does really work.
I am a conduit to asking those questions that maybe a wider audience would like to know. Plus, just having a bit of fun.
A spokesperson for a TikTok of a brand can show the culture because they are really genuinely part of it. They can provide education because they're speaking on behalf of the audience that don't know as much as the people working there.
Yeah.
And they're an entertainment. They're, so basically everything that we say TikTok is about, which you've got to entertain, inspire, or educate.
Yeah.
You're able to do that. But I guess, yes, the risk is that you are tying to yourself to that person. So I imagine that there's normally got to be like contract signed to kind of ensure that that person is going to stick around for a certain amount of time. There
is so much to say on this topic as well. And like, I don't overly think about it, but I think I'm in an extremely fortunate position. I came into this company at a very interesting time. I think just the nature of my job, and they weren't looking for someone to do what I do. It just naturally evolved, and the world has kind of followed suit. I think that they have been trailblazers in the industry for many things, and the vlog is an example of that, where they went, no one's doing this, let's do it. Right, he seems all right. And then I think I just like grew into the role. Marketing is a small world. And when you're peeing in the urinals at a festival in Peckham and someone turns around and goes, "Goat vlog guy, goat vlog," you're right, mate. Like it happens quite a lot.
You're famous. I've been with
world.
you where
well, if
you go to, I know I've seen like when you've gone to Cannes and things.
Yeah, Cannes different.
People, true, bit of a bubble. But and finally, just a bit about you. What is your TikTok algorithm like right now?
I'm getting a lot of US content still. So it's
Same.
like picking over the dead carcass of an election that was 6 years ago. And I get a lot of random sort of pick and mix stuff. So a lot of comedy stuff, a lot of running stuff, variety of all kinds. Right,
we're going to move into the first trend now. We're going to be talking first about the Roman Empire trend.
Can you just give me like one second? I'll be back, guys, everyone.
Okay. It's very good.
It is I, Matimus Wyattius.
Do I have to call you that for this whole
Please.
section? Okay, that's fair. It looks great.
Thank you.
Very on theme for what we're going to be talking about, which is the Roman Empire TikTok trend. And this was the trend that really got me interested in wanting to do this podcast, because I just think it's so fascinating how it evolved. So I'm going to be asking you your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
What's your understanding of the Roman Empire trend?
I actually did some research. So I followed the digital breadcrumbs just to find out where it came from. So 2022, a Swedish influencer I think, asks her male friends and posts the DMs online. And then a year later, another Swedish historian posts it online, and it then I think filters through into like the American and British audiences. So I remember picking it up pretty early because I filmed asking my male friend, how many times do you think about the Roman Empire? I know it's kind of like, you know, traditionally women asking men or their partners, but I think I was aware of it pretty early on because it was just absurd.
Yeah.
I never think of the Roman Empire.
Don't you?
No.
Oh. See, I do occasionally. My favourite film is Gladiator. So
Your favourite film is Gladiator?
Yeah. And Ratatouille. But anyway.
Sorry.
We don't need to delve into that. It's a great film.
Sure, but like,
but that makes me think of the Roman Empire occasionally. Yeah, it's probably the film I've watched most in my life.
Is that what's the song?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
I can't. Maybe we'll do a rendition in the end. So, yeah, when you first became aware of this trend, it was obviously, I think when it really exploded, it was women, like you say, asking their male partners, husbands, friends, brothers, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? And they obviously quite often seem to say regularly, like almost kind of once a week, once a month, and
a couple of times an hour.
Yeah, a couple of times an hour. What do you think about? And they would sort of say, I don't know, it's just really fascinating, or it's really impressive, or I think about the sewage systems or the armies and the outfits and things. And just, I think
there's a lot to like.
There's a lot to like about the Roman Empire. And what was kind of your initial reaction to the answers?
I found it a little bit cringe, if I'm honest, because I think that, you know, it's one of those, I saw a lot of sort of semi-famous people doing it, and I'm like, you're very aware of what this is. And I think it played up to like these notions of masculinity that are tied to like being a strong man and, you know, caring about infrastructure and like aqueducts. And so from that perspective, I thought, oh, this is a bit lame. But then you actually get the people that are genuinely fascinated by you know, that long list of amazing things that the Romans did. Like they invented central heating. I didn't know that.
Yeah. What would you say? We saw it kind of evolve. So initially it was, women asking men about what they think about. But then it sort of became women also sharing their own Roman empires. And how do you think, can you explain to me a little bit how the trend evolved in your eyes?
I think initially it's that classic gender divide thing where it's like, what's that book? Women are from Venus and men are from Mars. Mm-hmm. So like people kind of love a something that splits men and women, right? Like, would you love me if I was a worm? It's a very female-based trend. And even like, you know, Brat Summer, I'd say, is quite a female-focused trend. Mm-hmm. So this was something that kind of like separated the guys and the girls. And it was, you know, quite basic in that respect. But then it evolved into... what's the alternative for women? What would be women's Roman Empire? And I think this actually came from talking to you about this. Yeah. That it turned out that it was more like Henry VIII and his 6 wives and the Romanovs.
Yeah.
Men are about building and conquest and power and you know.
Yeah. Building things.
Whereas women are more sort of emotionally focused.
Yeah.
And
or about people. Because I often, that's what I found with it, that I found really interesting, that the first few weeks of the trend, it was very much like people talking to their male partners, getting these answers. Then we started seeing it appear in the media. You had like Ryan Reynolds giving his, you know, a trend's kind of dying down when the celebrities start getting involved in a way, or like the mainstream media. But I think the reason this trend kept growing is because there were so many layers, because then women started sharing their own Roman empires. And like you say, I think I noticed a difference between what women said and what men said, in that when it came to history, it feels like women tend to be more focused on, like people or like things that happen to certain families or people rather than the building.
A big bridge.
Yeah. And so do you think that's true? Do you think that men tend to be more interested in like the building of things?
Like, yes and no. I think that it's reflective, and often these trends are, of sort of a wider societal conversation. This has a lot to do with sort of masculinity and the manosphere that we're seeing on social media, right? Where the ambiguities of being a man and the nuances of modern day society and men feeling like they can't sort of say what they want to say, that they definitely could in the Roman times because there was no space for the female voice. I think that there's like a complexity to a trend like this that says more than kind of the face of it.
Yeah.
And then obviously you also get women sharing their stories of, my Roman Empire is like being able to walk home safely at night. And so I think that, you know, it showcased a complete divide in like what occupies our thoughts as men and as women.
I think that's exactly it. I think the root of it is like what occupies our thoughts. And that's why people were fascinated, because it's like this Roman Empire occupies men's thoughts. And then women, as you say, I saw loads of women sharing, well, you know, what occupies women's thoughts is personal safety. It's, you know, it's the fact that in relationships or kind of heteronormative relationships, it tends to be women who think about the house and the childcare and the cleaning and the chores, and like it sort of became this then movement of women being like, well, maybe women don't have as much time to sit and think about the Roman Empire because we are thinking about all these other things and that men don't really realize. And so does it tell us a little bit about what occupies the female and the male mind? And I think that's why the trend became so interesting in that way. Yeah.
There were some fantastic quotes as well that I was reading, like, all roads and male thoughts lead to Rome.
Yeah.
And
it's so true.
Rome wasn't built in a day, but it took one day to like invade the entire internet.
Yeah. No, some great quotes from it.
But to defend the Roman Empire is very interesting, and they did amazing things, you know?
Yeah. Fascinating.
And, you know, there are layers to these things.
Well, didn't they have more like, they had better sewage systems and health and things like that than about 600 years later. And like, we are still using some of the systems that they put in place. Yeah. I find that incredible.
What would the Romans have done for us?
But what was some of the biggest surprises in terms of what people's Roman empires were? Would you say that many kind of brands got involved in this trend that you saw successfully? I don't think I really saw many.
I think because this was relationship focused, where it was like partner asking their partner after a long day of work, it wasn't totally tailored to like a brand jumping on it.
Yeah.
And I think because there was a gender sort of specific element to it, you know, Carol from HR being asked by, Carol from HR asking like Martin in finance.
Yeah.
I think, you know, brands are very well aware that like that's murky waters. Probably stay out of it.
Murky territory. Yeah, I agree. And I think as the trend gets more serious, it becomes more murky. But I definitely think we did an event in New York recently, and I think this is an example though of the kind of trend where when it first kicks off, it's good to sit and talk about it because you could maybe start to predict where the trend might go. Like, had we sat down and maybe when it first started emerging, maybe if we'd sat down and been like, oh, what's this trend? Let's talk about it. What do we think it means? I reckon we might have started to have these conversations and we might have started to predict that this was where it was going to go. But I think sometimes as marketers, we're so like, oh, we've just got to jump on the trend right now. We've just got to get something out now that we maybe don't stop and like think about it deeply.
It's actually a really interesting point because these, you know, the younger generations get berated for their use of social media, but all that these trends are kind of launch pads into quite important issues and topics that we then end up, it comes out in weird like TikTok dances, like, you know, women's safety, but like it's just the Gen Z.
Haven't seen that one.
It's just the Gen Z way of discussing kind of hard to talk about topics.
I agree. And finally, on the Roman Empire, what is your own personal Roman Empire, both from like a history and a pop culture kind of moment? Because we did see a lot of people also being like, you know, my pop culture moment is when Kanye West stormed the stage at the VMAs and, you know, they shared kind of moments in pop culture as well that they think about regularly. So if you have like a historical one and a pop culture one, what
Can I start with pop culture?
Yeah.
Pop culture, I reckon Alex from Glasto getting up on Dave's set You're not aware of this?
What?
Fantastic. Dave at Glastonbury, the rapper, picked a guy in a PSG shirt.
Yeah.
How this has gone over your head, I'm not sure how. So he picks this random kid to get up on stage and like sing a few bars with him, or like rap a few bars. And he does like the entire song and he goes mental, and there's, tens of thousands of people. He's having the best time of his life, and he becomes kind of like at least the British superstar of the summer.
Yeah.
It was a cultural moment that came out of nowhere. Glastonbury produces those moments anyway. And then he came into the office and we shot like an Amazon Alexa little ad wearing his PSG shirt when he was still like the most talked about person of that, month.
Yeah.
I think about him a lot.
That's nice.
If you're still out there, give me a ring.
And a historical one?
I'm siding with the ladies on this. I grew up near Hampton Court Palace, so I often just walk past and I go, oh, back in the day, Henry VIII would have been riding past with his cronies. It was all hunting ground. I think I lived on like what would have been Henry VIII's hunting ground. I can always imagine like you'd have a bucket of shit that you'd throw out the window because the Romans weren't around to install their sewage systems.
They'd just be walking through the streets.
So mine's Tudor times.
Okay.
Loved it.
Same.
Guillotine.
I'd say
really?
Tudors, maybe French Revolution is
Oh,
for me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I love a
Les
bit of
Mis.
Marie Antoinette.
Do you hear the people singing the songs of angry men?
Well, that was very interesting. We're now going to move on to the next trend, which is Britcore.
Do you mind if I just take another minute?
I think you should get out of the Roman costume.
Okay. I'll get back into my normal, what I wear day to day.
Please do. Are you coming back?
Maybe.
Oh, God. I think...
Maybe
What?
you're going to be the one that saves me. But after all, everybody.
Right, well, we are now going to talk about Britcore.
Britcore. It's getting weirder and weirder, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I should probably have said for anyone who's listening via audio that you're dressed now in a mullet. Kind of, is it a mullet? I don't even know.
I don't think it's very Britcore.
It's not very Britcore. It kind of looks like a long-haired Donald Trump.
True.
But you have got an IKEA bucket hat on, and you've got a
traffic cone that people urinate in. Did you know that?
Hopefully you haven't urinated in that one.
Well, I put one on my head a couple of months ago and then found out that they are used as urinals.
Yeah. I get that.
They're also great sort of foghorns. The Goat Agency. Watch our new podcast coming to you very soon.
Thank you. So Britcore. What's your understanding of Britcore?
Britcore, I think, sort of an amalgamation of Taylor Swift ending her concert in London, Oasis releasing tickets to their new show, and a few other things. I think there was this explosion of interest in mundane. What are you laughing at? Is it?
No,
if I can't be taken seriously,
carry on. It just suddenly, like, I just suddenly looked at you and saw. And yeah, so it kicked off. There was an interest in British culture, I think, because of Taylor Swift. She ended her European Eras tour. She also was she had like two quite highly publicized breakups with a British actor and a British. I think she's okay. Yeah. She seems to be doing well. Yeah. And a British, the guy from 1975. Yeah. So I think all of that, got interest in British culture, and people were posting TikToks of them, going to the tour or showing the beautiful architecture and the lovely history of Britain. But then Britcore, I guess, sort of evolved from that, didn't it? Although Britcore has been around for many years, but...
Let's face it, this little island is fantastic. Yeah. People, especially Americans, they love us. Yeah. The Queen, God rest her soul. Just Anglophilia. Yeah. People are very interested in British culture because,
Well, for such a tiny island, like musically, Britain, films.
We export a lot of culture that is, known globally and is very important historically. I think that what separates kind of the normal interest in British things and Britcore is that this was kind of like the underbelly, the like aestheticization of really ordinary, banal Greggs sausage rolls, cheeky Tesco runs, fish butties,
bucket hats,
community pubs, like the real sort of shitty parts of British culture,
Yeah.
which we
Are they
love.
shitty though?
Well, no, because
Yeah.
you know they are what unites us and kind of makes us feel very British, and doesn't really get mainstream attention or representation. You know, people think that we live in cobbled street lanes and like probably, you know, have a chimney boy come.
Yes, it's basically, it's kind of like we're going to talk about what real British people resonate with.
Yeah.
That you don't necessarily get to see in the films, and maybe a little bit more in like soap operas, you know, EastEnders, Emmerdale and things, because they're about real people's lives and they're kind of aimed at British people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that it's like you often see these kind of cobbled lovely villages and Midsummer Murders and
they
everyone,
exist, right?
which they exist, and that's a big part of British culture. But there's also this kind of other side of British culture that is getting absolutely blottoed on a Friday night and sticking a traffic cone on your head and then getting a kebab on your way home. And that is a big part of British culture as well.
Being called boss by the kebab man.
Yes.
I think this is why memes on social are they are a unifying force for good, because they resonate. You know, you have memes that resonate across borders and like globally as people, we can all relate to the human experience. But then there's something very fundamental about being British.
Yeah.
And this kind of also allows us to project something to the outer world, because we know how we're viewed kind of outer inwards. And I think it's a misrepresentation.
Yeah.
And the democratization of social is exactly about this. It's showing the parts that, you know, don't often get shown.
Yeah. And it's so kind of exclusive in a way, because it's us being like, only British people will kind of understand this. And I think it kind of is tied a little bit to, I was talking to you this week about Hun culture.
Remind me what is that?
Huns and like...
You right, Hun?
Yeah,
like
but
that?
it's a very specific niche kind of subculture that's emerged on TikTok and social media,
Right.
that sort of celebrates so-called Hun culture, which is like Gemma Collins from The Only Way is Essex and, you know, wearing leopard print and having a Prosecco and having a Live, Laugh, Love poster on your wall, and kind of, it's all about, it's almost like a celebration of being a bit cringe. And I almost think it's like taking back, this is stuff that people get mocked for a little bit. But they, and also potentially because I think a lot of Britcore and Hun culture is rooted in working class culture.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rather than mocking that, it's a celebration of that.
Yeah, being proud that like these are the real lives that people live. I definitely think there is a working class element that, I don't know if we should say that, but
I think that is true. I think a lot of what I see of Britcore, it's kind of a celebration of that. And
you see it in all of these industries, in the fashion industry, you know, in arts, where often it's the working class culture that the culture vultures from the upper echelons take, repackage, resell. And I think brands have got to be more aware that like that is the case, and pay homage, or, you know, I don't know what the lesson is in brands for kind of this popularization of the real and the unfiltered. Because it's not very sort of brand friendly.
Yeah, I've seen some, I think brands that have leaned into it can do it well. I mean,
Greggs must have done well.
There was a lot around. Yeah, I think Greggs have done it really well. I know Tesco sort of leaned into everyone talking about going to Tesco to get a picky tea, or, you know, a Tesco meal deal. And I think there's definitely an opportunity for brands to kind of like humorously poke fun at themselves a little bit.
I mean, Time Out did a list of Britcore places to go if you're visiting London, and there was like Leicester Square's Mega Greggs. And I do think like humor is the thing that is, you know, humor is underpinning this whole trend. And
British humor,
which I think is
the best in the world,
unparalleled.
Yeah,
it is the best in the world.
Look at you right now. But yeah, I agree. I think it's very much says a lot about British culture that I think we as a culture are quite self-deprecating, and we don't like to see ourselves as a bit uppity. And I think that's what distinguishes British and American culture a little bit more, is that, not in a bad way, but Americans tend to be more like positive and sort of, you know, reaching for the stars, and it's the American dream and everything. Whereas Britain, we're like, don't get too above your station. And sometimes I think that annoys me about British culture, but I also think that it allows us to be really funny, because I think we're a very self-deprecating culture.
Yeah.
And on TikTok, obviously, we've seen that play out with people, whether it's sharing their Tesco meal deals, sharing you know, memes of their favorite parts of British culture.
Yeah, so many.
And like, it could be clips from Big Brother or Cat Slater, you know, core. Cat Slater
I'm not
core.
just a slag. I'm a massive slag. Is that the line?
Yeah.
Or Ian Beale?
Or I'm not your mother. I'm not your mother. You know, like that kind of thing.
Cat Slater. I served Cat Slater at my first job at the Co-op.
Really?
So that I really went in.
I assume you mean the actress who plays Cat Slater.
Sorry, she's not real. The actress that plays Cat Slater, and I was, you know, starstruck.
Yeah, she's a legend. She's a living legend.
If we go back to the start of the interview, career highlights, serving Cat Slater at the Co-op.
Yeah.
At age 16.
That is Britcore. And what are some iconic British things, that Britcore things that you yourself love and think about a lot?
Something I have once a day, jacket potato and beans.
Oh, yeah.
Which
once a day?
Well, the office, they serve a subsidised jacket potato. These things are gargantuan.
Yeah, that's true.
They weigh a kilogram. You're getting a weights workout and a lunch. But my partner is not from this island. She's from China. And she told me a story yesterday. She was like, we walked past this restaurant. She said, the first day I arrived in the UK, I went to this restaurant and I had the weirdest meal. It was a jacket potato and beans. Ugh. I was like, that's you know, apart from a korma or vindaloo, that's our national dish.
We grew up on that.
Love
British
a
people.
jacket potato and beans.
Do you think Britcore on TikTok is a good representation of British culture? Like, do you think it's a positive thing?
Do I think it's positive? I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a humorous look at some of our slightly less glamorous quirks. And, you know, I think it allows for a truer representation, you know, than the Cotswolds and afternoon tea at the Ritz. You know, so yeah, I think it's hilarious. Like, who doesn't find British people funny? And this is kind of like that boiled down to its right essence. Yeah,
I agree. So, final trend we're going to be talking about today, draft talk.
My favourite.
Is it your favourite?
I think so.
I think it might be my favourite. So give me a bit of an overview of your understanding of draft talk, or conscription talk, it's sometimes called as well.
Yeah. Conscription being forced enlistment in the armed forces. It's not a very nice thing. I'm just going to throw some facts at you.
Go for it. 2
periods of conscription in modern British history. One during World War I, whatever that was, obviously. And then the second one from 1938 up until 1960.
Wow.
I think the last term of conscription ended in 1963.
Are we talking about in this country?
In this country.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been around for a very long time. And we had, you know, the backdrop to this, I think, was the elections here. And the Tory manifesto, they came out with a kind of late policy that they were going to bring back mandatory military service. There have been other countries to do this. Sweden has, I think, introduced something similar. But basically, Gen Z's got like super up in arms. I think they're terrified of the idea of us having conscription for like World War III, which looks inevitable. So they go to TikTok and they start making these amazingly hilarious reaction videos to the news that Rishi Sunak is going to be calling you up for war. We've laughed so hard on some of these.
Not me going to war. I think that's my favourite one.
I'm here naked eating a bowl of yogurt and Rishi Sunak's going to send me to war. And some of the headlines, some of the quotes. I mean, you know, Rishi Sunak sending me to the front line. Give your head a wobble.
My favourite was like people showing girls being like, "Get ready with me for the trenches," and just kind of doing all the fun, but just doing all the funny things that like we we see on TikTok all these kind of cringe things that we associate with Gen Z. Well, not cringe, but, you know, like the sort of the stereotypes of Gen Z, that they're a little bit more precious.
It is.
And I think they took it and ran with it and just did so many hilarious responses, taking the things that they do, like viral TikTok dances, but pretending they're in the trenches.
Dodging
and like
bullets.
just funny.
But it goes back to the Britcore trend, really. It's like quintessentially British humour, turning conscription anxiety, which again is a serious wider conversation about global politics, Gen Z being kind of unfit, not their fault for the world of, you know, war. And, you know, like with the Roman Empire as well, it starts off as quite a humorous, tongue-in-cheek trend.
Yeah.
But actually what it says about young people and the government, you know, if you think about a crumbling NHS, house prices, young people feeling like they're never going to get on the property ladder, student debt, crushing people, like, is the government fighting for them? And then you've got people going, but they want us to go and dig some trenches. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think one of my favorites that I saw, it was Grace, you know, the one who's going into I'm a Celeb, Grace, the comedian one. And she did the one that was like, not me going to war. And she was like, I know I've fought for my rights as a woman. Take them back. I don't want them.
Oh.
I want to be in the kitchen cooking a Vicky sponge. I'm not going to war, kind of thing. And I just was, but I agree. I think it's like, it was a hilarious trend that everyone was like finding funny, but underneath it is kind of a serious, like, I think fear and slight anxiety of this very serious, like, threat that potentially this could happen at some point in, you know, not necessarily conscription, but the threat of war is always something that everyone feels. And I think especially now, and also that resentment thing as well of young people, I think, feeling a little bit like, really, you know, we've sacrificed already so much, even during the pandemic, you know, arguably young people kind of had to sacrifice for the sake of older people, really. And I think there was that sort of like, are you really serious now that we're going to have to do something else? And this was their way of humorously responding.
I think as well, when the younger generations are accused of being politically apathetic, really this comes off the back of, like I said, a Tory manifesto policy, but also like the chief army commander making comments. So these are, you know, you're accusing Gen Z of ignoring real world events and politics, but this is a direct sort of this is a direct response.
This is them responding to politics. It's just in a way that older generations don't understand. I think that's what I get frustrated at sometimes when, you know, maybe you have conversations with your parents and they don't understand TikTok really.
Yeah.
And it's like, but just because they are talking about political things in a different way, that doesn't mean they're not engaged. Actually, this is kind of their way of engaging with some of those more serious topics. And I think we've said that we see that a lot with like politics, history, you know, very serious things. TikTok is like an avenue for them to talk about it.
For sure. And I think it's not apathy. It's that war over the past 20 years is not seen as a moral endeavor for these young people. They're looking at the failed wars that we have been involved in, the money that's involved, the like loss of innocent life, and they're going, do you know what? Like, I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
So I respect. The more we sort of have these open conversations, the more I actually think Gen Z and the younger generations are put in quite a confusing spot.
Yeah.
And then criticised a lot for it. I think it probably happens to every generation.
I think it happens to every generation. I have always said everyone's an activist until they're 25. Like, until you start, you know, paying taxes.
Yeah, it's true.
But as in, I think Gen Z are often called the activist generation, but I also think that's just because they're young. And I think every generation has had the same criticism of like, oh, you know, they're not serious enough. They're naive. They don't get the real world. And it's like, well, of course, they're 21. Like of course they haven't had as much life experience, but that doesn't mean that what they think is irrelevant or what they think is not as important, because they're still valuable, needed members of society.
Exactly.
And meme culture, it has kind of become its own language. Like,
Yeah.
what is meme culture, and is it important for brands to understand it?
For sure. I don't think it's silly at all. I think one way of explaining it recently is this pebbling
Oh, I
effect,
haven't heard about this.
where you regularly sending memes to your friends is the same thing that penguins do when they lay little pebbles.
I love that. Yeah.
It's just a new form of communication, right? And I think the sophisticated level of humor that you get on social, not every corner of social, but it makes the world a brighter place.
It does. And I agree. And I think do you think, though, just to play slight devil's advocate, do you think there is a bit of naivety with Gen Z and the way that they are maybe engaging with these kind of issues on TikTok? Like, is it working?
The worry is that, like, the algorithm really sort of determines your point of view and your feeds into your biases now. Your views can't be filtered entirely through meme content and what you see on TikTok, because then you get echo chambers, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. And okay, so we finished on the trends. I just want to finish with a few general questions about TikTok, social media influencers. How do you think the way people are using TikTok has evolved this year?
This year, I went with one of our co-founders, Nick, to the inaugural TikTok concert in Arizona. Amazing time. We had a really good time. And I got given merch. And if I get given something for free, I'm going to wear it. And I was a little bit like, oh God, I got a TikTok logo on my shirt. And now I realize last year I probably would have been a bit embarrassed. And now I think you're probably looked at and people probably think it's quite a cool place to work. It's gone from being a silly kids platform a couple of years ago to now, if you don't know what TikTok is about, then you're out of the loop. Then you're the loser. We've been to TikTok's offices in London. I mean, they're a serious operation. I really got hooked on the platform. All I want is engaging content.
We did a recent event about moving with the mood shift.
Yeah.
What do you think
New York,
the moods of people are, and how do you think that's going to, impact TikTok trends?
I think we're entering what's going to be a very chaotic year. We've got 2 global wars. We've got a president that splits people down the middle in opinion. We've got a Labour government that, we don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think with all these trends that we've been discussing, that anxiety and uncertainty will feed into the content, probably being expressed through humor. So I would probably predict more trends that are
more like draft talk a little bit.
Yeah, that express real sort of anxieties and broader discussions that maybe aren't being had. God, it's going to get crazy.
It is. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap that up. But thank you so much, Matt. I've loved having that conversation. Out of the 3, what's your favourite? Still draft talk?
Roman Empire, I'd say I love the outfit the most.
Yeah.
Draft talk, I just think, bravo,
Hilarious.
Gen Z.
Bravo for bringing us draft talk. Okay, well, thank you very much, and that's the end of today's episode. Thank you.
Horrible. No, thank you. Very chaotic year. We've got 2 global wars. We've got a president that splits people down the middle in opinion. We've got a Labour government that, we don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I think with all these trends that we've been discussing, that anxiety and uncertainty will feed into the content, probably being expressed through humor. So I would probably predict more trends that are
more like draft talk a little bit.
Yeah, that express real sort of anxieties and broader discussions that maybe aren't being had. God, it's going to get crazy.
It is. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap that up. But thank you so much, Matt. I've loved having that conversation. Out of the 3, what's your favourite? Still draft talk?
Roman Empire, I'd say I love the outfit the most.
Yeah.
Draft Talk, I just think, bravo,
Hilarious.
Gen Z.
Bravo for bringing us Draft Talk. Okay, well, thank you very much, and that's the end of today's episode. Thank you.
Horrible.